Welcome back. You're still watching the lifestyle segment on the weekend show brought to you by Holocron Popcorn. Now, we always talk about electricity in Nigeria. Literally, I grew up in a time where once there's power supply, we scream up NEPA. And the beauty of Nigeria is our resilience, that we don't always wait for government to do stuff for us. We find ways to innovate around our problems or even ways to advocate for better services. And electricity is a burning topic right now. And so we'll be having that conversation on this segment. So joining us, we have
Ishaya Baku, who's the writer and director of NEPA. We also have Omona Juliana Okonkwo, who's the head of operations, the Electricity Hub, and Nenrod Goyal Akiroro, who is a producer of NEPA. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Ishaya. I'll start with you. Why up NEPA? What's this about?
I mean, you just said it, up NEPA. Good morning. Thank you for having us and obviously having this conversation. So, up NEPA, I mean, like the question is, why don't we have constant electricity?
Yeah.
And what would it take for us to get constant electricity? And it's one of those things that had been burning in my mind for a while. And as a filmmaker, like in terms of the films that we do, in terms of documentaries or even just like fiction films, we try to see how we can make or create those conversations. And so we set out to answer those questions. And I mean, like, we didn't know the rabbit hole it would lead us to. And we should have anticipated it, because like the power sector is obviously something that affects literally everybody, regardless of your gender, regardless of religion, ethnicity, even social class. And so, yeah, so that was the question. And as a documentary filmmaker, I was like, okay, you know what? Let's go out and find out. And so we started this, and this is a few years ago now. It's taken us a while, because like it became more and more. First of all, the power sector is wide and varied, and the challenges in Nigeria in particular are complex. And it's like, okay, you know what? How do we break this down to the everyday Nigerian to be able to say, okay, you know what? This is the reason why, and these are the things that we can start to do or look at in terms of improving the sector.
Omona, I see you're the head of operations, the Electricity Hub. I would like to know, what really is the issue in Nigeria with electricity?
I need a pen and paper for this.
As possible, because as old as we are, electricity should not be a major issue.
Yes,
because it doesn't just affect the everyday Nigerian, it affects businesses as well. And with the state of the economy, a lot of people are going into entrepreneurship, running their own businesses. So what exactly is the problem?
So the problems are diverse, right? As you would imagine, we have issues with, let's leave generation out of it, because of course we have gas, and we have gas producers, we have generation companies. But then when you look at transmission and you look at distribution, the problems are many. So, for instance, we run on gas mostly. And then when the rainy seasons come, we run on hydro. Of course, like you can imagine, right now, power supply is a bit more improved than it was before the rain started. But then you come to distribution, the discos, We have discos supplying or distributing this power, but they are not able to turn in a lot of revenue. And this challenge also goes down to we, the consumers. We don't like to pay our bills, some of us, right? And this goes back into the discos' performances. They cannot operate, they cannot improve their infrastructure if we're not paying our bills. And it's not just regular Nigerians, it's also government agencies, the MDAs. A lot of them are owing these bills, and they don't want to pay. So there's a lot of debt across the power sector value chain. And that debt also ties into the debts owed to gas generation companies. So everyone is being owed. And when people are, operating on negative, they will be less willing to do business. And then when the investors out there, they see that the sector, people are not paying their bills, and there is really a lot of infrastructural deficits. A lot of our transmission lines, distribution lines, infrastructure, they are weak, they are dilapidated, they need to be improved, they need to be changed. But where is the money? right? So at the end of the day, the problems are diverse, the challenges are many, and we're just trying to, manage this whole thing. But the Electricity Act of 2023 that was signed into law last year by President Tinubu, it gives, opportunities to states to take over generation, transmission, and distribution of power. If the state governments can be able to, leverage that Electricity Act, we'll have better, improved power supply, because number one, you're breaking down the country into smaller units. You have people and businesses in states, they have the power to generate, transmit, and distribute power. So if, for instance, in Lagos State, I, as a company, I can, generate and distribute power to some level, maybe to some commercial clusters, and they can pay for that power. That's 24/7 power for them. So I think the Electricity Act has given us a fantastic gift. All state governments need to do is to leverage on that gift.
I think my biggest problem, I love Nigeria with every bone in my body, especially our food. But certain things, and this may be around before I get to the question now. I asked this question this morning, that why is it that $10 billion in Nigeria is different from what $200 million will do in another country? Because I recall the Minister of Power saying it will cost about $10 billion yearly if they have to subsidize power and for government to support. However, I see government allocating money to a coastal highway which is leading to a lot of demolitions and issues. Why isn't this money channeled into fixing immediate issues like electricity, which would have its effect on the economy, businesses, and the likes? And tying into that, in 2014, before the Goodluck Jonathan administration went up, they had sold off a lot of these discos to these organizations who could have the capacity to supply. And now everyone is saying, oh, they're not generating enough money. However, and this, like I warned you, is a rant before the question, only about 12 million households are metered in Nigeria. There was a time when people were literally begging to get the prepaid meters so that they can pay for power and have this. Isn't it a better process to ensure everybody's houses get meters, first of all, before removing the subsidies and increasing the tariff? That's one question. Isn't it better to have that process? And secondly, do you think government should control the power sector, or should this be fully in the hands of the private sector?
Okay, so thanks for asking, even though...
And I know it's a bit of a rant, but yeah.
So first of all, I agree that everybody should be metered first.
Yeah.
Because if I'm not metered, then of course there are chances that I'm going to feel cheated, because I'm going to be paying for estimated billing. I might get light for just 2 hours in a day, and I'm going to be paying a ridiculous amount of money, and then someone who is getting so much light will be paying the same amount with me. So I totally agree that everybody should be metered first before this whole billing thing. And then, sorry, your second question again?
The second question, should it be handled by government or private sector, the whole electricity power sector?
Personally, I think it should be handled by private, because we tried governments. We did. And, well, where are we today? So that's why, of course, that's why we made a documentary titled Up NEPA, because if the governments that were handling it all these years had done the right thing, then we wouldn't have any reason to make a documentary titled Up NEPA. So I think the private sector should handle it.
I mean, I think adding to that and just like piggybacking or echoing what Omano said, and those were kind of the things that we listed out in terms of the challenges. There's an infrastructure deficit. So we do not have enough infrastructure to supply. You would hear about us generating 8,000, 10,000, 12,000 megawatts of electricity. We can only transmit half of that. And then even when it comes to distribution, so it's almost like this kind of cascading thing where a lot is being generated, half of that is being transmitted, and then even less than that is being distributed. And then, as she mentioned, and what you said about, with the metering, that's also a deficit, because, they obviously we're not metered enough for the population that we have. And, I mean, I think it's just today that I read in the news that the TCN is unbundling, and so creating NICO, N-I-C-O, which I think is a good thing. And as Omano said, like the Electricity Act of 2023 is a step, I think, is a step in the right direction because it does democratize power. And again, the reason why we call it UpNEPA is that a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old who's just learning how to talk already knows UpNEPA, right? Which is ironic in and of itself, but then it begs the question, and I think as a film, like as filmmakers or as like storytellers, so to speak, it's like getting that history of how NEPA was formed. So it was formed by the merger of the Electric Company of Nigeria and the Niger Dams Authority in the 70s. And then obviously it stopped to exist in 2005 with the Electricity Act of 2005. But then the privatization process did not complete until, as you mentioned, like in the early 2010s. Yeah. But there were also problems with that. Complex, as I will keep saying, but problems nonetheless. Because like it was a very large, and I think it was the largest privatization process in the continent as at that time. And obviously like a vertically integrated company like NEPA, to unbundle it the way that it was, problems would exist. Yeah. And as you mentioned, why does 10 billion naira in Nigeria look like a different amount? That's the main question, because there is corruption and mismanagement at the heart of it. Yes. And that is something that we know as Nigerians. And it's an unfortunate reality, but it's something that we actually really need to tackle and we need to speak about. The Mambila Dam, or the Mambila Hydropower project has been ongoing. I think it's almost 40 years now. In Ethiopia, they've built the same dam and they built it in less than 10 years.
And you'll find out that the cost is cheaper
and it's, it is, and it's operational as we speak. At least the first phase of it is operational as we speak. But I mean, like, as you say, you love Nigeria, and I feel like in a way you were convincing yourself, as we all do.
I have to remind myself I've spent the last 24 hours without power because it rained the day before yesterday. So I'm guessing they're waiting for the power lines to get dry. And so I have an inverter, I have a gen, but I've run out of fuel because my inverter battery has been down, and there's no fuel, which means I'm buying 10 liters of fuel at 10,000 naira. And so as much as you love the system, you have these questions. And it's even worse because in the last administration, they did some work on power. I've noticed this year it has gone bad. And so, and this is a question, how can we, using advocacy, hold government accountable and also the people? Because we can't just sit down and take it all every day as it is with one excuse about we're not paying enough or we need $10 billion. How can, especially besides like what you are doing, how can more people get involved in holding the systems accountable?
Well, I think it's a question of awareness, first of all, because you can't hold anyone accountable for something if you're not aware of what they should be doing or what you should be doing. So the Electricity Act is a place to start. Nigerians need to understand what the Electricity Act is all about. Follow the Electricity Hub. We write articles every day based on stuff like this. We teach people, we make them aware of their rights. Yeah, NERC will tell you, that's the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. They will tell you, yes, you have rights as a consumer, but are Nigerians aware of those rights? Are they aware that if, there was something you said about metering. Yes. As of February 2024, we had 13 million Nigerians that are electricity consumers. Right, the rest of us, we are not electricity consumers, we do not have access to electricity. But those of us who do, we don't have reliable access, right? And this affects businesses, like you said, affects healthcare, which is very vital, a critical sector of the economy, And then we have just less than 7,000 Nigerians that are metered as of February 2024. That's crazy. Right? And then you have increased tariffs. Like you said, it's important to have meters first. But do Nigerians even know how to get these meters? Are they aware that NERC has, deregulated access to meters? Are they aware of that? Do they even know this? Right? Because now they can easily access meters. And do they even know who these meter providers are? Are they aware that they can actually speak to meter providers, come up with some kind of installment payments, right? If you interface with these meter providers, you can tell them, okay, my income is not up to maybe 200,000 a month, and the meter cost is 130,000 naira, for instance. So is there some kind of payment plan, so that I can have these meters in my house? because it doesn't make any sense for me on band A to be on estimated billing. And then at the end of the day, people just bring random bills to my house. And I know that for a fact, throughout the month of April, for instance, I didn't get 20 hours of electricity per day. Yeah. Now, the important thing is for Nigerians to be aware, to be interested in the sector, first of all. If you're not interested in the power sector, you don't know what's happening in the Ministry of Power, you don't know the policies that NERC is churning out, then you won't be able to hold anyone accountable. So they should be aware of the Electricity Act. They should hold their state governments accountable and say, okay, this Electricity Act is here. What are you doing about it? Enugu State, Ondo State, and Ekiti State, they are the forefront of this thing. But what about the other states?
Chair, I would like to hear your thoughts on the increase in electricity tariff. Andy said he's not had light in 24 hours. And I remember when we spoke about the increase, you said you discovered you're in band A.
Oh, yes.
And you've not had electricity in 24 hours.
I have, so NERC has an app, called Power Outage Reporting System. I think I'm their best user because every day once my power is, I'm updating, I'm reporting, and in the first week there was no response, but now sometimes I get messages in the app saying, has your power been restored? So yes, talking about how we need to be involved in knowing what happens.
Yeah. So I'd like to know your thoughts, hear your thoughts on that, because I feel with an increase in electricity tariff, there should be a major improvement in power supply.
I think I completely agree with you. And I think in many cases, like, people are willing to pay for what they get.
Yes.
And I think that is the nature of just the contract. You know, like, it's that if you are giving me 20 hours of light a day, you know, even if it's 18 hours of light a day, but if you're giving me what is contracted, 20 hours of light a day, and I'm in this band, people will pay. Because as Andy mentioned, like, in terms of energy access, like, and I think that is the saddest thing about our country, is like, we're such, in terms of raw resources, we are an energy-rich country, but then we have the highest energy access deficit in the world. And that's to say that we are providing, because everybody here, you use light one way or another, you use electricity one way or another. So if you are not getting power from ADC or from NEPA, as it is, or from the grid, you are sourcing your own energy. So either you have bought your inverter, you have your solar panels, or you're using your generator, whether it's I pass my neighbor, or all across. And the cost of running a generator, whether it's especially diesel generator now, is exponentially more than band A.
It is.
Exactly.
So if you ask any business owner, even any homeowner, if you look at it that, okay, in a month, my bill will come, I'm paying 50,000 or 100,000 naira in a month, and I'm actually getting this light. You know, I'm actually getting the power that I'm paying for. You would obviously take it over buying diesel, you know, servicing your generator, or buying fuel, servicing your generator, because again, like, that's the nature of our access. But then the problem is that nature of that contract. And then the second aspect of it is obviously the communication, which is very, very important. And just to Andy's question, and as I completely agree with Omono, and this is the reason why we went out to make it, is you need an informed people. You know, for you to be able to have any sort of reasonable advocacy, or to be able to speak about your rights, you need to first of all know what your rights are. And so it takes you to be informed, to have the knowledge of what it is that you need to be doing, you know. And it's the problem is both ways. It's top down and bottom up. So the government itself, they've not done a lot of the things that they should be doing, although now it seems that they are trying to get a grasp of it because they have to. And then, but also consumers as well. So whether you're not paying your bill, whether you're bypassing your meter, you know, you put your ACs direct, and, you know, and even the distribution company officials are complicit in this. Or you're tapping lights, you know, like, those are the things that need to change. Because, like, as Omano mentioned, like, the revenue coming to the distribution companies, it goes all the way up. If you are paying your NEPA bill, the distribution company is able to pay the
transmission,
the bulk electricity trading company, who also pays the generation companies, who also pays the fuel supplier, which is primarily gas, because largely most of our power stations is gas. We have just 3 dams, 3 hydro dams that supports the network, the grid network. But simply to answer your question, in terms of the tariff increase now, it's a contentious thing, the same way that fuel increase was contentious. But then again, if you are getting the service that you are paying for, Because again, we're already paying for it. We know how much you spend on fuel and on diesel a day.
Ishaya Naira Omono, that's a good place to leave it. But just before we let you go, where can people find the UpNepa documentary? And how can we find the articles written by Electricity Hub?
Okay, so we're yet to premiere that. We're premiering on the 9th.
Okay.
Yeah, the UpNepa is going to be premiered on the 9th, and then after that, it's going to be on YouTube, so everybody will get to watch it.
We're using it for free.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Okay, yeah, so just come to www.theelectricityhub.com.
Okay, thank you very much. For those who don't know, Ishaya is an award-winning director, producer, writer, an activist and advocate, and so I know that we'll get nothing less than the best. I can't wait to watch it. When it's out, come back, let's share a bit of it on the weekend show. We'll happily do that. Absolutely. And we'll also share your link so that people can be informed and aware. That's all we can take on the lifestyle segment. We'll take a quick break. When we return, more on the weekend show. Thank you.